And hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Aether Revolt. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe here with Luis Scott Vargas. We've got one more round of draft to cover here. That's going to be it for the Pro Tour. We're going to be standard from here on out, including tomorrow on Sunday for our top 8. And we've got a nice one here. We've got Sam Pardee from Team Face to Face Games. He's facing off against Jeremy Dezani from Hawaruya. And both players coming in at 8-2 and would love to exit the draft portion with only 2 losses on their record.
Yeah, it's a pretty critical round, as they all tend to be in this stage of the tournament. But the difference between 2 losses and 3 losses is if you have 3 losses, you have no losses to give. You're not going to make top 8 with a 4th loss under most circumstances. So exiting at a 9-2 record would be very, very good.
Really, really good. And of course, you know, the players often feel like they have their destiny in their hands once they hit the constructed portion if they feel like they've made a good choice for the metagame. So let's head down. It's time for round 11 here from Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Aether Revolt. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. And we're ready for round 11 action, where we've got 2 players sitting at 8-2. That's Sam Pardee from Team Face to Face Games. You get a look at Sam here. And that is Jeremy Dezani from France. He's on Team Hawaruya. And 8-2, solid record coming into round 11. But boy, these players would love to leave this round with just 2 losses heading into the constructed portion. Okay, nice little start here for Jeremy Dezani. He's got an Aether Theorist. Other side of the table, a little bit more of an aggressive start from Sam Pardee, although he went Forest, Welder Automaton.
He is red-green, though, and he's actually got a pretty aggressive red-green energy deck with a much heavier energy theme than we normally see once you add Aether Revolt to the mix.
Ooh. Metallic Rebuke from Jeremy Dezani on turn 3 is actually going to counter a Thriving Rhino. That's a big play.
Yeah, trading a Metallic Rebuke for one of the better attackers in the format is a pretty good deal, though Jeremy isn't really advancing his board all that quickly either.
No. But we'll see what he does with this turn. He's in a stable board state. He's got a 1-3 facing a 2-1, and still no red mana to be seen from Sam Pardee either.
So Jeremy has a pretty interesting hand. He's got Cruel Finality, Illusionist Stratagem, and Ice Over, 3 reactive cards, and really is just not, in a position where he can utilize them as effectively as he'd want. Like, yes, he's killing Welder Automaton there and getting to scry one, but that doesn't really open the door for much besides an attack for one. What Dezani really wants to do is find a 5th land so he can play that High Tide Hermit and maybe just start attacking. Of course, Sam missing a land drop there and playing nothing on turn 4, no land, no spell. That is pretty problematic for Sam, though the fact that Sam missed a land drop, maybe not even as impactful as the fact that Jeremy Dezani just drew a Noxious Gear Hulk, which that by itself gives Jeremy a really huge advantage. It was, if not the best card in Kaladesh, maybe the 2nd best card, and having it here means that there's really not a realistic way for Jeremy to lose a long game.
It looks like Jeremy's going to try to hit a land drop here. He's playing Illusionist Stratagem, and he's got it. He blinked and got more energy after scrying with his Aether Theorist, so a reasonable play. A 2nd copy of Welder Automaton here for Sam Pardee. That is the other one in his deck, but sadly for him, that was his draw step, as he has no 4th land once again. And this thing is going to spiral out of control quickly. You can see our advantage bar heavily in favor of Jeremy Dezani. And there's the High Tide Hermit, which is just going to act as a nice little attacker. And it could close this game out very quickly, especially if there's no land drop here from Sam. We may even see him concede relatively quickly, not wanting to tip his hand too much about what his deck's doing.
The 2 Welder Automatons give you a bit of a clue as to what your 2nd color is, but either way, Sam is not playing very many cards this game. He does get the bad news that Jeremy has a Noxious Gear Hulk in his deck. It's all so depressing. You're playing against an opponent. You're losing the game fairly badly, even though the Gear Hulk is now on the bottom of the library. But you know you have to play another game against someone with a Noxious Gearhulk in their deck.
It is.
It's just in the back of your mind the whole time.
It is painful. Here's an Aether Herder. Okay, so it looks like we might have a game here.
Yeah, the natural obsolescence actually goes a long way here.
All right. Maybe we don't have a game here. Though still, even this being said, Jeremy's only attacking for 4 or 5 damage here. And if Sam can find another land off the top, which he did, he's got he's got 2 copies of Chandra's Revolution in his deck. If he's got one in his hand, let's take a look. No, it doesn't look like he does.
He does have Lifecraft Cavalry, which could block the High Tide Hermit. The only problem there is that Jeremy can now pivot into start using Aether Theorist to scry every turn. He's got 7 energy, and he's going to start scrying on his upkeep to try to find an answer to the cavalry, and then try to force the last couple damage in with the High Tide Hermit. Just 2 more hits from the crab will finish the game. It's a rough spot for Sam because Jeremy is ahead on board and ahead on life, but Sam was ahead on cards, except for the fact that Aether Theorist gives Sam a lot less hope because Jeremy's able to just rip through his deck and find, other good potential answers.
Yeah, well, he found a threat here with an Aether Poisoner, but it isn't a particularly potent threat.
It's actually possible that Sam can take a turn off and maybe play Ballista Charger, since he has access to that.
That would have been interesting. He decided not to, as he could play 2 spells using up all 6 of his mana here, getting a significant amount of energy off of a Thriving Grubs. It's really going
to depend on what Jeremy can scry into now, because traditionally mana screw beats mana flood. Having too few lands when you draw out of it puts you in a better position than your opponent who has too many. So Sam really needs to leverage that as quickly as he can, because those Aether Theorists will presumably find Jeremy another strong card here.
Yeah, the interesting thing that's happened here is that even though Jeremy's been ahead significantly for most of this game, he still only mustered 3 power.
Yeah, the High Tide Hermit and the Noxious Gearhulk were his 2 actual threats, and Sam did have ways to deal with both of them.
So Jeremy kept a Cruel Finality on top of his deck, and he's going to leverage that here to take down the Aether Herder. So he's going to get a trade, and then his Aether Herder is going to trade for a removal spell, but that's going to allow Jeremy to keep 3 power on board.
The funny thing is, now Sam is actually at risk of having too many lands. How quickly the balance is turned.
Yes, it's interesting, because I think he had a 1-turn window there where he really, really, really needed to draw a land, and then he did. And so far, he's actually been able to scrap back into this game, but it's still looking like he's pretty far behind after going land off the top of his library. Last card in hand is a Ballista Charger, which looks okay on this board. Got some work to do. Yeah, these threats from Jeremy Dezani just aren't amazing.
No, this is really, his game plan is really contingent on Noxious Gearhulk here. He's got, Reservoir Walker is just kind of an anemic threat. The 2 Aether Champions, so Sam not drawing another land
Sam
here.
Just flooding horrifically as he draws another mountain somehow.
Though that Scrapper Champion can start getting in, it's not necessarily the best blocker.
Yeah, if it picks up a +1/+1 counter, it looks like a pretty darn good blocker.
On the other hand, if Sam leaves it back, he does keep back potentially the Servo and can block one of the Aether Theorists, but Reservoir Walker plus Aether Theorist can still get in for 4 points of damage. Yeah, Jeremy's still in a spot where basically any relevant spell can maybe push him across the finish line here. And keeping a card on top, not good news for Sam.
Yeah, Sam Pardee didn't want to see that. Looks like it was a Dynavolt Tower.
Oh. So now, really actual spells are good or energy generation is good. The Dynavolt Tower competes a little bit with Aether Theorist in terms of ways to spend your energy.
Yep.
Yeah, we've seen Jeremy's deck really produce a lot of energy over the course of this game. But look at this, past the turn back.
He did not attack with the Reservoir Walker, interesting.
Why didn't he attack there?
He didn't want to trade it for Scrapper Champion, presumably, but that seems like an advantageous trade, especially given that unlocks the Aether Theorists and the Servos to attack. So
that's right, and also could potentially strand the Ballista Charger up there as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised Reservoir Walker did not get in there.
Combat.
And it looks like Sam is going to enter combat.
So he's almost assuredly drawn a creature to play then, if that's the case.
That's right, he's going to use the 2 energy to put a +1/+1 counter on the champion. Jeremy's going to take it and fall to 18. Ooh, it's a Malphis Revolutionary as well, and that's going to net him yet another counter. Sam Pardee fighting the fight here. It's been a bit of an up and down game for Sam. It looked like he was down and out early after he had 3 lands and no permanents facing down a Noxious Gearhulk.
Yeah, that looked very, very difficult to come back from, but a couple cheap removal spells later and might actually happen. Is that another Aether Poisoner?
It was.
So that's not going to get Jeremy to enough energy to use Dynavolt Tower quite yet.
But there's an Ice Over from Jeremy. And that is going to neutralize the biggest threat on the board. Sam is going to need to get fortunate here to draw multiple spells in a row off the top of his deck. I'm sure he feels like that wouldn't be super bad given the fact that he had no lands at the beginning and then too many lands in the middle.
Yeah, because Dynavolt Tower is such a potent late game threat, because Sam is at relatively low life, because Jeremy gets to Scry Return, Jeremy is in the lead here. But if Sam has like a larger creature to play, maybe a removal spell to take out something, like if he had an artifact removal spell to take out Dynavolt Tower, that would be a pretty big swing as well. It also depends on how many spells Jeremy has in his deck. If he can't find any spells, that Dynavolt Tower will actually end up doing nothing for quite some time.
All right, so Sam's going to be proactive here. He's going to crew up the Ballista Charger. He's going to attack with it and just take down the small death-touching Aether Poisoner right now.
So Jeremy considering a quadruple block, perhaps? Looks like he's no longer considering that.
He did go over that for a moment, but no.
Also wouldn't be surprised if Jeremy threw the servo in the way to prevent 6 damage here, because next turn the servo is the only target for Ballista Charger's 1 damage.
Yeah, it does seem like a good use of it in case Sam has a spell in his hand and can actually keep attacking with the Ballista Charger. It does take big chunks at 6/6.
Jeremy did leave a card on top, but he seems unenthusiastic about the cards he's been leaving on top, and they have been kind of middle-of-the-road cards, nothing really that exciting.
Is that a Scrap Trawler?
It is, and that will, if it dies, it will get back a Welder Automaton, so a pretty nice draw from Sam here. I don't remember what rating we gave this in our set review, but it seems like it's effective on this board.
It looks like our plan of never acknowledging this existence has come to a close here, Luis.
I don't know what you mean, but it also
Sam
means
is
that
leaning
if
on it pretty hard.
Ballista Charger dies, it will also bring back a Welder Automaton.
This has been a really cool game.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a snapshot of that turn with the with the Noxious Gearhulk, and now look at where we're at.
It's funny because it looked like the game was unlosable for Dezani, but now actually he's ahead here depending on what this last card is. If he drew a solid card this turn, it could very easily swing, because Jeremy is actually slightly behind on board in a lot of ways, but he's like 1 card away from just running away with the game because he has all this potential. And Shipwreck Moray means that Dynavolt Tower is now active.
Okay.
2/7. Yep.
Still, Sam Pardee is at 8 life, so he's not going to get towered out of here too quickly.
But it can take out like Maulfish Revolutionary.
Right.
Could take out Scrap Trawler, and that would open the door for an attack for 5, putting Sam to 3, which will then leave Sam dead to Dynavolt Tower next turn. So yeah, Shipwreck Moray was a huge draw there.
This is going to take out the Revolutionary. When it dies, he gets another trigger. He's going to garner yet another energy. Doesn't really feel like the counter is worth it. No attack from Dezani. Land off the top for Pardee. He did have a nice string of spells, but now he's drawn a forest.
Go.
Dezani just drew that card.
Yeah, choosing not to scry because he wants energy to pump Shipwreck Moray, or potentially use Dynavolt Tower, but because Tower takes 5, it's more likely that he's looking at Shipwreck Moray.
He just passed the turn back to Sam Pardee, and it looks like Sam drew a card and passed back to Dezani. Dezani says, all right, I want to get some business going here. He can find instants and sorceries to help get that Dynavolt Tower charged up anyway, so he's just going to start scrying. And again. 2 cards to the bottom. He's going to be happy he did that. But he's now out of energy.
So
cancel that order. Thriving Turtle.
Every time you think that Jeremy's out of energy, he just gets a little bit more energy, a little bit more gas in the tank. And
true.
Yeah, Thriving Turtle kind of gets there. Lets him scry at least a few more times.
But we're still in a board stall here, huh? Jeremy says yes. Metallic Mimic for Sam Pardee.
Yes.
Normally you like to play this on turn 2, look at your hand and describe, okay, well, which creature type do I want to name? But he's just got a couple of lands in hand, so he really has to know what kind of cards he has in his deck to name.
Oh, there we are.
How about an Aether Squall Ancient here for Jeremy Dezani? That's the big gun finisher that he was looking for. And now all of a sudden the pressure is massively on Sam Pardee to find an answer. And I'll tell you what, green and red have a pretty big problem with 6 toughness.
Just the 6/6 flying part of it is gonna do a good job ending the game here.
Yeah, I mean he needs to try to kill that, and he really just can't. So Sam just passes the turn back. Dezani's going to use up that last energy to scry 1. He's going to get 3 energy on his upkeep.
And any spell he can draw will finish the game off Dynavolt Tower as well.
By spell, you mean?
Like actual literal instant or sorcery.
Instant or sorcery.
Let's use Aether
Well,
Theorist.
that's interesting. Yeah, it makes you more likely to draw said spell, but it also means that the Dynavolt Tower is not lethal with the spell.
Yeah, I like just drawing here.
Was it another Aether Poisoner?
I think it might have been a Battle at the Bridge, which would have clinched this game even if it weren't a spell.
Yeah, Poisoner also does. But yeah, Battle at the Bridge is pretty nice here as well. And how about we battle your Metallic Mimic?
Sam's dead like a
6.
bunch of different ways right now.
Yes.
The battle is over.
For 24, I go energy.
That was a good fight, though, from Sam Pardee.
Yeah, given the circumstances, I think Sam did a pretty good job of coming back, or at least trying to.
Yeah, he just never quite regained control of the board. Jeremy Dezani using those Aether Theorists very well and finding his way to victory in game 1 here of round 11. Jeremy Dezani up a game. Sam Pardee is going to hope to not miss those land drops in the next couple of games and try to pick up this match win from Dezani. All right, well, we've got more Magic coming up for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after these messages.
Check out Aether Revolt Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Build a deck at your own pace and play at your convenience. Draft anytime, play anytime. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
It's time to take back the power.
Optimism, innovation, and the spirit of creativity fill these pages, lavishly illustrated with the award-winning art of Magic the Gathering. Welcome to Kaladesh, a vibrant, beautiful plane where anything is possible. Join the heroic planeswalkers of the Gatewatch as they explore the Inventor's Fair, and let your imagination soar alongside thopters and airships, crafted by the best artificers in the multiverse.
Welcome back to the feature match area here in Dublin, Ireland for Pro Tour Aether Revolt. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we're in round 11. This is the last round of draft. We've got Sam Pardee facing off against Jeremy Dezani. This is game number 2. Jeremy won game 1. And Sam has no turn 2 play. And this looks familiar. 3 forests in a row for Sam Pardee. Does he have no red mana again?
He does not. You have read that correctly.
Aether Swooper was a turn 2 play for Jeremy Dezani.
Jeremy has some decisions to make. Dynavolt Tower in hand means that spending 2 energy on a servo doesn't look quite as enticing as it would normally be.
Aether Swooper really quite good at getting the servos going if that's what you want to do, but it looks like that is not the case here. So the Fairgrounds Trumpeter is going to attack just for 2. Ooh, and there's that Natural Obsolescence doing work again for Sam Pardee, potentially keeping him alive. The problem, of course, is that he's up to 4 mana, but still no red mana sources. He drew a red card for the turn as well, which can be problematic unless he finds a mountain quickly. So it looks like Jeremy's going to change course here and go ahead and make the servo this time now that he knows the Dynavolt Tower's gone. And there's an Ice Over just to take care of the Trumpeter. Ooh, mountain off the top, though, for Sam Pardee.
Yeah, this gives Sam Pardee, I think, a slight advantage because Jeremy has all reactive cards in hand, and Sam just has 4 threats in hand, which means that Sam can eventually run out. You know, he can keep running out cards. I guess the Gremlin, the one on Gremlin, the Ruinous Gremlin, not a huge threat in and of itself, but can trade for something.
This is interesting. Sam is looking over, and he recognizes here that that Jeremy Dezani has Metallic Rebuke mana available, and it looks like he's going to play around it. He could have played a more expensive card, like a Scrapper Champion here if he wanted, but he didn't. He decided just to play his 2-drop Thriving Grubs. Yeah,
and though Jeremy doesn't have Rebuke, that is a good heads-up play from Sam. But Jeremy just has no way to close out the game here. He's got a bunch of ways to deal with what Sam has, but he's going to need a little bit more pressure if he wants to convert that.
Jeremy's going to attack with both, even the servo. He knows that the servo is unlikely to be able to block anyway. The Thriving Grub's very likely to be a 3-2 attacker when it actually sends in. Interestingly, it does give Sam the option of not doing that, but he does in fact cash in 2 energy for a counter. Dezani's going to fall down to 15. And let's see, Sam says, all right, well, I'm just going to go big then. Ballista Charger. If you've got the Rebuke, then fair enough. But he doesn't. And with another mountain off the top, that lets him also play the Ruinous Gremlin.
The crowd's cheering and the trumpeter's trumpeting.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's a little muffled right now under a big pile of ice.
I feel like if the trumpeter got large enough, it should be able to break out of the ice. It got larger and stronger, but...
Would it be creature type Mastodon after that? All right, here's Illusionist Stratagem here for Jeremy Dezani. He's just basically doing that to net himself a little energy and draw a card. He wasn't trying to wait super long for the big blowout, but that did find him Aether Squall Ancient in his hand, and he's 1 mana away from being able to cast that spell.
That's exactly what Jeremy needed, because now that he has that, all those removal spells in hand serve a purpose. They buy him time to draw the 7th land to play Aether Squall Ancient and win the game. So I think Jeremy's in a very good spot now.
Wow, a second copy of Ice Over is really doing work on
Jeremy's got a theme deck here.
Well, he certainly does. Malfunction, Ice Over, Ice Over. And Sam Pardee's whole board outside of a little Ruinous Gremlin is tapped down and staying that way.
Sam need to decide it in a Paradox Engine when you play a spell, untap all your permanents. It would actually be great here. It would just be fantastic.
It would be. It would be a 3-for-1. Scrapper Champion is the play for Sam Pardee, but he's not going to like what he sees if Jeremy finds a land off the top, and he does.
13.
Jeremy's moving quickly now, and I think he knows he's close. There's just so few ways in Sam Pardee in his color pair to deal with a creature like an Aether Squall Ancient.
Right, even the anti-flying card, which normally, like, you know, a plummet, destroy target flying creature would be exactly what you want. Takedown just doesn't do it. It deals 4 damage.
It only does 4. You need basically 2 spells to kill an Aether Squall Ancient, or you need to have some massive creature that you can fight up against it. And Sam has neither. You can see the advantage bar heavily in Jeremy's favor for that reason. It looked kind of close on board, but then Sam just lost his entire board to ice or malfunctions. By the way, I appreciate that Jeremy put the malfunction on the vehicle. That's
that makes more sense.
Flavorful. And now he's just super far behind because he is not going to have an answer for the Aether Squall Ancient.
Yeah, there's just not much even in Sam's deck that can deal with Aether Squall Ancient, and he's just looking here, trying to figure out his way out. I don't think he's going to find an easy solution.
By way of update, Makihito Mahara defeated Arnaud Baglin from France in one of our side tables. We've still got Ben Rubin and Liu Yuchen fighting it out. Liu, by the way, still undefeated. He's 10-0 right now coming into the round. But he's facing down a Hall of Famer over there. And they're still playing. Rubin had won game 1 last we heard. So Dezani
6.
attacking for 6 in the air. You see Sam Pardee block there. That leaves him basically an additional draw step. So instead of going down to 6 and dying to the Aether Squall Ancient next turn,
Go to 20.
he will be able to draw one more card and try to find his way. But battle at the bridge from Jeremy Dezani. The rares are really flowing for him at this point. Scrap Trawler doesn't look like it's going to be enough for Pardee. We're going to see him fall down to 1 life, have one more draw step, and if he doesn't find an answer, that's going to be the match. Might not even be a card in his deck, and there wasn't. That's going to do it. Jeremy Dezani defeats Sam Pardee in 2 games. Dezani 9-2.
It is not party time this round.
No, definitely not. But I will say that Sam Pardee falls to 8-3, and he gets to transition into the constructed rounds now, where he has a chance to run it up and try to make top 8 at this Pro Tour. That, of course, leaves just the one match left. This is Liu Yuchen versus Ben Rubin. Rubin's currently up 1 game in this match. He's playing for Team D3 Go.
Ooh.
Was that an alley evasion there from Rubin?
Yeah, takedown targeting the airdrop aeronauts, thwarted by an alley evasion.
Ooh, that's efficient.
Rubin with a commanding lead and Thopter arrest and acrobatic maneuver in hand. I think Ben is in a very good shape here.
Yeah, I was going to reach over and reset the advantage bar. I'm not going to do that now.
No, I had analyzed the board state and moved it, but as we were transitioning in.
Oh, all right. Didn't realize that.
I did it really quickly.
Yeah, and it looks like Rubin's just going to be attacking with everything here. Looking to hand Liu Yuchen his first loss of the tournament.
Yeah, Liu Yuchen is so far ahead of the pack that despite being 10-0, he got paired down against an 8-2.
Wow.
So it is a good sign for your tournament, but I don't think he's making it through without a loss this round.
That's right. He picks up the loss here. So, again, he's 10-1, still looking in good place to get himself to the top 8, but he does have some work to do, picking up his first loss of the tournament there to Ben Rubin. Now, the Hall of Famer Ben Rubin, playing for Team D3 Go, has been, recommitted to Magic. We've seen him a lot more at the tournaments recently. Welcome back to the booth here. That's Luis Scott Vargas. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. What are you looking at there, Luis? We got some undefeated drafters there?
So one of the cool storylines is the Draft Master competition. Every year we look at how many people can accumulate the most points in the draft rounds of the 4 Pro Tours. And coming to this round, we had a list of all the 5-0 drafters. From this Pro Tour. And
so they 3-0 day 1 yesterday, and they were 2-0.
There were 2 in this pod. And we saw Jeremy Dezani, for example, just win to go 6-0. Liu Yuchen just lost to go 5-1. So taking a look at who's going to run a clean sweep of the limited rounds.
Who else do we have on the list here?
We saw Arnaud Baglin. We just lose, so he drops to 5-1. And taking a look, we have a lot of players, constructed as 10 rounds, so that's a bigger portion of the tournament.
Sure.
But again, there's the metagame consideration. Are you going to be the draft master this year?
Yeah, and that is a big deal for these players. We'll be keeping an eye on those as they shape up throughout the course of the season as well. But that's going to do it for the limited portion here from Pro Tour Aether Revolt. Let's send it up to the news desk and Brian David Marshall.
Good afternoon from Dublin. Players are on a little bit of a lunch break right now. We are turning the room over from limited to standard. We're going to get back there. We're going to give you a little recap of what happened in the limited rounds. We'll update you on standings. We're going to talk a little bit about what we learned about standard yesterday as we explore all the new wrinkles added by Aether Revolt. I can tell you that before the Pro Tour, Rich Hagon had a chance to go to Renton, Washington, and explore what went into making Aether Revolt. And we've got a little bit of video from that now as we go inside R&D.
I'm a huge fan of Kaladesh. I'm very proud of what we made. And one of the neat things about making a world as special as Kaladesh is finding a way to build upon it, to make a set that sort of, follows up the awesomeness that's Kaladesh, but gives something new and different to it. And I think that one of the neat things about Aether Revolt is it both followed Kaladesh, plays with Kaladesh, does neat things, but it's its own set. Like, you're in for a wild ride. Like, you've met the calm Kaladesh, let's meet the wild Kaladesh.
Magic is a game about conflict. It's a fighting game. Ultimately, there's combat. So Kaladesh presented a unique and difficult challenge in that there wasn't any kind of all-out war. A lot of our sets are about war, or about fighting. And so it was kind of refreshing to get back to a conflict that we could represent with people fighting each other, and we could actually show that in the cards.
So Revolt came from us looking for a way to give the player an additional benefit from having their stuff broken or losing things, and specifically making it leaves the battlefield instead of, goes to the graveyard or dies, was intended to sort of embrace the spirit of the block of being open-ended and letting you combine things together. There's, some self-bounce in the block where you can bounce your own creatures, blinking where you can exile it and bring it back into play, or sacrificing creatures or sacrificing artifacts are all ways to get Revolt to work. And so it plays sort of a multi-purpose role as recycling your broken inventions into additional power, or sort of a vengeance theme of you killed my creature and now this next creature I play is more powerful.
Revolt has interesting gameplay implications. A lot of times you'll see either iffy attacks or downright horrible attacks. You can see that as a defender, you're seeing oh wow, they probably want to get Revolt. If I kill this stuff, they might get Revolt. I really don't want their Lifecraft Cavalry to be a 6/6. It'd be a lot easier for me to deal with as a 4/4. So that really factors in. Combat's a lot more interesting, so super obvious plays may not be so obvious. Or they could just be bad attacks, because we're all prone to making those.
Vengeful Rebel is a card that works particularly well with Revolt in combat. So bluffing, attacking smaller creatures into larger creatures. When you throw Vengeful Rebel into the mix, your opponent has to start thinking about, well, if they block your 1/1 with their 4/4, it might not be that you play a 2/2 that gets more powerful. You might also have this Rebel that can finish their creature off, and having a card that sort of turns into a removal spell if you have Revolt on gives a lot more play to how Revolt needs to be evaluated in combat.
In Constructed, when you're building a deck around Revolt, you're really going to want to make sure that you hit it every time. A card like Unbridled Growth played on turn 1 may not look very threatening, but then on turn 2, when you sacrifice it and play Greenwheel Liberator for a 2-mana 4/3, your opponent's going to be pretty scared.
Fatal Push is a bit of an experiment for us. What if the strongest removal spells are black? Black is known as a removal color, but if you look at what are the strongest removal spells in Magic, like Lightning Bolt and Sword Splashers, Fatal Push is our attempt at, what if it's black? In Standard, you have a lot of cheap ways to get rid of something, but in Eternal formats, you get the fetch lands, and that's the biggest deal. So oftentimes, Fatal Push is B, instant, destroy target creature CMC 4 or less. And that's a really big game changer.
One of the things that we definitely wanted to play up in Kaladesh, and that we didn't quite get completely in the original set, was the idea of making things, of having an artifact mechanic that represented making artifacts, designing things. And that one of the things we wanted to do was, in Aether Revolt, they're having a revolt, but they are making things. One of the neat things about this is that the rebels are designing their own weapons, designing their own tools. That part of this revolution is that they are using their skills as craftsmen, as artisans, to do something. And we wanted to get that sense in our mechanics. And so one of the cool things about Improvise was it really got the sense of making something. That yes, there's destruction, but there's also creation.
So one thing that we discussed a lot as we were working on Kaladesh was whether we wanted to have any explicit artifact mechanic in Kaladesh. So what we ended up with was there are a lot of cards that say if you control an artifact or that key off artifacts in some way, but there's no keyword, there's no word that means these cards are good with artifacts except the abilities that we designed in Kaladesh. And we knew pretty early that when we decided to go that direction with Kaladesh, that with Aether Revolt, we were going to want to pay off that artifact mechanic. Give people a keyword that specifically meant this card is good with artifacts, and Improvise being a cost reduction mechanic, which also doesn't really exist in other places in the block, just felt like a pretty natural fit to put there.
So coming out of Kaladesh Standard, we saw a lot of the artifact stuff was working, especially the aggressive strategies. So one of the things we wanted to make sure happened was to have artifact-based decks that were working on a different axis. Cards like Tezzeret and a lot of the Improvise cards are for a slower, more controlling artifact deck.
So the implements are there as sort of a crossover cycle between many things that the block is doing. So they're artifacts that are relatively inexpensive to put onto the battlefield that'll count for your cards that are checking if you have an artifact. They can also sit there and be tapped to reduce cost for Improvise. And then finally, you can sacrifice them to have a permanent leave the battlefield that turn to enable your Revolt cards. So individually, their effects are pretty marginal, but they're the glue that ties a lot of the mechanical elements of the set together.
In the first set, when we introduced something, we really want to do it in the simplest form possible. And vehicles are complicated. Vehicles are definitely were the most complicated thing we had done in Kaladesh. And so we introduced them. And one of the neat things about the second set is, okay, we've introduced the things. We don't have to explain that part to you, and we can tweak a little bit. So you will see us playing around with vehicles and doing a few different things that we did in the first set.
Peace Walker Colossus is a card that really lets you fill your deck up with vehicles. Normally, you might not want to have that many because of the risk of having too many which clog up your hand. But if you have Peace Walker Colossus on the board, then you can be sure they'll all be crewed.
Aether Revolt continues the energy theme from Kaladesh. So a lot of the cards from Kaladesh that generate or spend energy, you're going to want to sort of take a second look at, because now there's all these additional ways to generate or spend energy that might create new combinations or new decks that weren't there before, because maybe you didn't quite have a good enough way to spend your energy in a red-black deck, for example, but now we're introducing more cards that use energy in both those colors, so revisiting that, could prove to create new decks in that area.
From a design perspective, one of the liberating things about the new two-set block model that we're working in is that we can cherry pick. We can express in our two sets only the best of what this world has to offer, only the elements that we think, well, this is really worth it to put in this set. We don't have to spread ourselves too thin. We don't have to show everything here. We just show the best stuff, the most awesome stuff. If it really hits, if it clicks with the public, if there's a clamor to come back, we'll come back later. We'll find more design space. But for now, this is the best stuff.
always love those features where we get a chance to look inside R&D with Rich Hagon. I can tell you we have another great video feature coming up just momentarily. But in the meantime, let's take a quick look at the overall scoreboard and see how players are doing. And I'll give you a little update on some of the key results that were going on there. Let's start and work our way backwards. There you see Josh Utter-Layton holding fast at 8-3. I believe he won his draft pod. A couple other names you see there. Jacob Baugh playing in his first Pro Tour. He's 8-3. That is a great start for somebody playing in a first Pro Tour. Brad Nelson, 8-3 after dropping a match there. Let's go on to our top 20 and take a look at what's going on. There you see Ben Stark. I can tell you that Ben Stark defeated Tien Nguyen to go up to 8-3. He got off to a rough start, lost his first 2 rounds of draft today, but has righted the ship and is in great shape going back to standard. You can see a couple matches still outstanding. Yan Cassandra's match not resolved yet. There you see Travis Wu at 8-2-1, Daniel Graffensteiner at 8-2-1. A couple of other notable results. Ben Rubin handed Liu Yuchen his first loss of the tournament. Ben Rubin goes up to 9-2. Liu Yuchen falls to 10-1. Incredible run here by Dimitris Triantafylou. He is 10-1. He's only playing in his second Pro Tour, part of the Greek contingent that's here. Cesar Segovia, his match still outstanding this round. We're waiting to see about that. When we come back, I can tell you that we have a great piece of video coming up for you from Nate Holt and Sean Kornhauser, who walked to a plane that flew them to Madison, where they've been profiling the Magic community in Madison, a tremendous Magic community. And at the pinnacle of that Magic community is the great one, Bob Maher. And they talked to him. When we come back from that video, though, we're also going to tell you a little bit about Standard, see what we learned yesterday. But in the meantime, let's enter the battlefield with Nate Holt and Sean Kornhauser.
Wow, what an incredible turn for John Finkel. Macher's now going to have to come up with an answer to Colossus with only 2 mana available to him. Bob untaps, resolves Tanglewire, draws, extends the hand. There it is! John Finkel wins the 2000 Magic the Gathering World Championship, taking out PT Player of the Year Bob Macher in an exhilarating 5-game match.
What an awesome performance from the Magic player.
Beautiful.
A superstar from Magic's past, Bob Maher Jr. is now retired from the Pro Tour. He owns a business that distributes games and toys and lives with his wife Courtney and their 4 children just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, a town that he helped make famous for Magic.
Well, Bob and I met, we went to the same high school. I was actually 2 years older than him, so I was a senior. Him being a famous Magic player was more so when we were engaged. Then he was the player of the year and doing really well and on the tour a lot. We would get stopped places, these people would come up and ask him for his autograph.
Obviously, you know what Dark Confidant is, right? Your dad was like a Magic player.
He has his own Magic card.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
All of us have it. I can't find mine.
Being a professional Magic player has changed my life compared to how I look at my wife's life. I don't really keep in touch, at least not regularly, with anyone from high school. My friend group, like my formative years, are mostly drawn from Magic. Even when I got married, when we took a picture of all of the Magic players that were at that wedding, it was staggering. I mean, I had very few friends at that wedding that I didn't know in one form or another from Magic.
Bob's resume from his playing days is impressive. He won a Pro Tour, was Player of the Year, and is a Pro Tour Hall of Famer. To many, he is known by his nickname, the Great One.
Bob Maher is one of the original greats of Magic.
He won an invitational a while back and left like a permanent mark by designing Dark Confidant.
Probably one of the greatest pros of all time. And yeah, one of the biggest reasons that the Madison community is the way that it is.
When you look back at the best player in the world, you're usually looking at longer stretches. Like for me, it was Mark Justice was the best player in the world for the very early stages. It probably passed to John Finkel and then on to Kai. I mean, if you want to start narrowing down to, when I won the Extended Pro Tour and then backed it up with winning the Extended Grand Prix, you can probably find windows of time where I might have been the best in the world at a format or the best in the world for a couple of months, especially if John was distracted doing something else.
It is day 2 of Pro Tour Magic 2015, and we've got a hot one on the skillet for you right now. It is the Shadow Mage Infiltrator, John Finkel, versus the Dark Confidant, Bob Maher.
I miss the people. That's absolutely what I missed most about no longer competing on the Pro Tour. Being in the Hall of Fame, I'm invited to go to all the Pro Tour events, and when they line up, I certainly try to, but it isn't necessarily the competition that I miss. It's definitely the people.
14 Pro Tour top 8s for John Finkel. Only 4 for Bob, just 4. Both of these players are Pro Tour champions.
He and I are still friends, and we'll have conversations. He's like, I don't understand how you ended up with the nickname The Great One, and I ended up Johnny Magic. He's like, that doesn't seem fair, because John and I will both agree that during our stretch of time, he was certainly the better player.
They've played with Magic. I mean, they've never known like the full game, but I think all of them have had, they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're just Magic cards everywhere. From, when they were super tiny, they were just playing with the cards or looking at the pictures.
My daughter sees my Magic playing career. She knows my friends are Magic players. She knows how rewarding I found it. And I think she just wants to take the first step. She wants to learn how to play and figure out if it's something she really enjoys. But when I saw how quickly and how determined she was to just even get through any of the duels programs on my iPad, that was when I had to take a step back.
I think for me, there's this small little nugget of fear because I know the second she would go anywhere and start to play Magic, as soon as someone found out who she was, there'd be this instant wonder, oh, she's Bob Maher Jr.'s daughter, how good at Magic are they going to be?
What cards do you like? Do you have any favorite cards?
Nope. I'm pretty sure she has one. Well, on the online game, you always just have these random cards, so... She probably has one favorite card, Dark Confidant. Obviously.
That's nice.
Right.
Sister love right there.
Putting her on the spot. Do I really want to introduce this girl to a strategy game that will reward you for as much effort as you put into it? And that's where a lot of us find ourselves, professional Magic players. I mean, that's the draw for a lot of us, that the more effort you put into it, you keep getting more out of it. I mean, do I help her down that road? Do I discourage it? And the answer I kind of came up with is I don't know that I would suggest the professional Magic playing lifestyle to anybody. I think they can have a very rewarding experience there, but I'm not one to go around and tell people, this is wonderful, this is what you should aspire to. I think the people it's appropriate for oftentimes end up finding it.